Welcome back to Pachehra Talks. Today, we are going to understand differences between single versus multiple app service plans. So, we must have seen people who are already working in Azure or people who are actually studying Azure. We can run multiple applications in a single app service plan. We have seen that in the real environment, and we can have single app service running in a single app service plan. So through this discussion, through this video, we are going to figure out what are the pros and cons for multiple app service apps, running multiple app services on a single app service plan, and what are the security aspect of it, and finally criteria to find out what is the best option for you. So let's get started. So multiple apps in a single app service plan. Here we see the pros and the cons. So let's start with the pros. What are the pros? So if you see, I prepared something like right here. Yeah. If you see, this is your app service plan compute, and we are running multiple application here. Okay, these are the pros and these are the cons. So as you see, this is the compute. App service plan is your compute. It's your CPU, your memory, and this CPU and memory is shared by all these three applications, right? Just keep this, imagine this, put it in your mind with this picture. It will help you understand the pros. Now, multiple applications on the same plan, what are they doing? They are sharing the CPU and memory, because the entire this big box is the compute. App service plan is the compute. So what is happening here? The very first thing is it's reducing cost, as you are only paying for one app service plan rather than separate plans for each application. So we could say cost efficient. So once the app service plan is set up, you can run additional applications without incurring extra charges, which is budget friendly, and especially for development or testing environments, as you can see here. Right now, you can imagine these three small web applications for some internal tools, an employee portal, an inventory system, or maybe an help desk. Now, instead of creating a separate app service plan for each, you put them all in this same app service plan. This saves money because you are only paying for one plan that shares resources across all three applications rather than paying for three separate uh, plans. So the cost efficiency, which was our first pro. Okay, oh no, come here. Right, so by running multiple application on a single plan, you avoid the need to pay for multiple instances of CPU, memory, and other resources, which is particularly useful in non-production environment. All right, so this is our first pro, pros. And second one is simplified management. Now, as you can see in the previous diagram, so you can easily manage all these applications through the same plan window, same app service plan window. So all applications under the same plan can be managed, monitored, and configured in a single place, which makes the administration easier. Now, there is one more thing. Think scaling. Scaling the plan automatically scales all application on that plan. So, which means saving time for applications with similar resource needs. What I'm trying to say, if this plan will scale, this will scale with the entire applications that they have running here. Okay, that's how it scales. So if it scale, it will scale like this. another instance will get created along with all these applications. Now, if these applications have the same resource needs, there is a condition, then it will be helpful. So, simplified management. Now, you can simply try to understand this with this example. Let's suppose we are managing several applications for a marketing campaign. If they are all under the same app service plan, like this, okay, and you can monitor their performance and usage from a single dashboard. When you need to increase capacity due to spike in traffic, you can simply scale up the plan, and all application benefits from the increased resources. Because the idea behind is they have this similar resource needs, all these applications. So, centralizing the management of multiple applications simplifies updates, monitoring, and configuration. You only need to manage one set of infrastructure resources. That is simplified management. Now, applications with different peak usage times can use the same resources effectively, preventing resource wastage when some applications are idle. For example, app 1 peaks in morning, app 2 in evening, app 3 in night. So when this one is in at peak, these two are at normal, so all these three combine, actually utilizing the entire resource properly. So resource optimization could be another pros here. So we could understand this by this example. Let's say you have a reporting app that peaks in usage during the day and a data processing app that runs heavy on calculation at night. That's how it usually work, right? Data processing at night and the reporting application during the daytime. Since they don't use resources at the same time, putting them on the same plan ensures you are using the available CPU and memory effectively without leaving resources idle. So resource optimization. So these three could be pros when you think running multiple application in a single plan, but it has multiple cons as well that we need to understand. So if you go to this diagram again, as you see multiple application utilizing the same plan or the same resources, what what are the different cons that come up with this? The very first thing is, since resources are shared, one application's high traffic or heavy resource usage can degrade the performance of other application on the same plan. If you have not calculated the usage of these application before running all these on a single plan, so one app might the usage of one app might hamper the other one. So resource contention, it will raise the performance issue. Now, there is no resource isolation between these apps. If one app monopolizes all the resources, other apps might suffer from slowdown or crashes, right? Now, since these applications share the same resource, CPU and memory, I should write here CPU and memory. Now, if one app consumes more than it share, right? For example, it has three CPU, each app has one. Let's suppose this way, though it's shared. If app one start utilizing 2.5, then these two apps will be running or getting slow or crashing down. So this is what leads to performance issue. Now, the another one issue that could come up is the scaling issue. Why? Because here it was helping us. There was a condition, if you remember, same resource needs, but here, if apps have different scaling requirement, it becomes difficult to scale the plan optimally. You may end up over provisioning for some application or under provisioning for others, right? For example, if app one needs scaling and you scale the plan, what will happen? We have already seen it once. It will scale all those applications as well, and these applications will start utilizing the resource which is scaled and they don't even need to scale, right? So it's a scaling challenge, ultimately wastage of resources, and because it's applied to the whole app service plan. So individual apps can't be scaled independently, which may not be efficient for production environment with varying workloads. So as I was saying, over provisioning or under provisioning. So we can take a simple example. Let's suppose you have an e-commerce app requires frequent scaling due to fluctuating traffic, but your internal tool doesn't need scaling. You'll end up scaling the whole app service plan unnecessarily, leading to higher cost without a real need for the scaling for internal tool. You may need for commerce, but not for the tool, right? So scaling issues. Now, uh, I think I should keep the diagram up. Now, multiple apps sharing the same plan, which means exposing to security risk. If one app is compromised, others could be at risk because all are sharing the same plan. Some apps may require different security configurations. For example, if you think from the firewall perspective, network isolation perspective, or compliance, which are harder to implement in a shared environment. So running multiple applications on the same plan means they are not isolated from each other. If one app is compromised, it could put the others at risk. Now, another one could be if one app requires a plan upgrade or a higher tier, all applications are affected, potentially increasing cost unnecessarily. So it will create management issues. When applications with different requirements share the same plan, it can be challenging to manage their individual needs without affecting the others. So that was the condition, if you remember, at the resource utilization we talked about at the beginning. So management issues will gets created. So we need to think from that perspective as well. Now, update or deployment on one app could potentially disrupt running other app service plan. Let's suppose this one is getting upgraded. These two may get impacted. So risk of downtime. Now, issues such as crashes or memory leaks in one application could affect the availability and performance of other application on the same plan, which is particularly risky in production environments. So maintenance or downtime for one application can affect all apps on the same plan, which is especially risky in production environments where uptime is critical. So I hope these pros and cons are clear from this, from the perspective of this diagram that would help us to understand. So let's go on another slide here. Now we need to see the security perspective as well. We did talk about the isolation and security risk, but let's go through all aspects of security. Now, here we are talking about, let me get back to the diagram. Let's suppose isolating application in separate app service plan enhance security by minimizing attack surface. So for example, this is your app service plan, this is your another app service plan, this is your another app service plan. Right, so all these app service plan are running on a separate, these app services are running on a separate app service plan, which mean this is, let me call it app 1, this is app 2, and this is app 3, right? Now all these compute are isolated. This application are not sharing anything. It has this separate isolated compute for this. So this enhances the security by minimizing the attack surface. If some outsider hacker or anything happened to this application at security risk, this will not impact this one because they're not sharing anything. So it enhances the security and minimize the attack surface. I should write here. Enhances security and minimize attack surface. If you remember, even in the zero trust, blast radius is one of the pillar, and it is always for the security aspect. enhances. Okay. Wow. What did I spell? All right. So that's what it means. Security perspective. The very first point was the application isolation. Application isolation. Okay. That was the first point, and we understood it perfectly well. Now, app-specific security configuration like VNet integration, private endpoint, and Azure firewall rules are easier to enforce when applications are isolated. This allows you to apply more stringent control where necessary. For example, there is a VNet running on, right? Suppose this is a VNet. So you can connect this plan with this. There is a VNet pairing, and there is a private endpoint, right? VNet pairing and private endpoint. So we have these things, VNet pairing and private endpoint. We also have uh, firewalls, right? Firewalls. We also have VNet integration. So because applications are running separately, so it would be easy to perform all those things as per the requirement. So what it will do, it will help us in performing network security better as per the requirement. Now, separate app service plan make it easier to configure access restrictions for each application, limiting traffic from one trusted IPs or regions. This is crucial for applications that have different exposure levels like internal or external, because all these app service plan has something called, I would put it here, let's suppose I put it here in red, where we can perform, allow, or deny. We can whitelist IPs, or we can do the regions, all those things. So this thing is there on each app service plan. So if these applications have different needs, this is the right way to go. And if these are not a different needs, but you have put all these applications in a single plan, then you have to compromise on this aspect. This is what it actually means. Now, reduce blast radius we understood from the isolation, but just for the sake of this point here under security perspective, by isolating applications, the impact of security breach or compromise in one app is limited to that particular app, reducing the blast radius and allowing for quicker recovery and mitigation actions. Finally, patch and vulnerability management, because independent app service plans ensure each app can be patched or updated without affecting others, which is important for reducing the risk for unpatched vulnerabilities, as we also talked about here under resource utilization. So if this particular app is getting upgraded or there is some issue vulnerability found, this will be worked upon and these will not get impacted because these are isolated. Now we need to ask some questions, right? What are those questions? Those questions will help us find out what is the right answer for us: single plan or multiple plan, right? So these are some questions which helps us find out, or these are the criteria to decide single versus multiple uh, plans for your app services. So the first question is, do the applications have similar or different resource needs? We talked about it in our previous couple of slides when we were trying to understand the pros and cons. So we know. So single plan is suitable if the application have similar resource needs. Similar resource needs, right? We already talked about it. And if multiple plans, then simply necessary if the applications have varying resource requirements. So what is good for a single plan, just like we used to do when we were small, if it works with the single plan, then the opposite will work for the multiple plan. So single plan suitable if the application have similar resource needs, and multiple plan if the application have varying resource requirement, right? Similar resource needs means usage patterns. For example, if multiple apps have low traffic or resource demands, they can share resource without affecting each other. And if they don't need scaling at all, these are internal application development and things like that, single plan is good to go. And if one app requires high compute power or memory while others do not, it's better to isolate them to prevent resource contention, right? So the question makes you help you understand, do the apps have similar or different resource needs? Helps you find single versus. Now, second question is, do the apps need to scale independently or have different peak usage times? So appropriate if the single app plan is appropriate if the apps have uniform or predictable traffic patterns. If the apps will experience similar scaling needs, example, all apps receive similar traffic spikes at the same time, a single plan might work. If the requirement is if apps have significantly different scaling needs, for instance, if one app needs to scale out to multiple instances during peak times but another doesn't, it's best to put them on separate plan to avoid unnecessary scaling. So peak usage will help you understand what all apps should be on a single plan if needed, or what all apps we should not put in a single plan. Now, will resource usage of one app affect others, potentially causing performance degradation? If the performance of one app does not impact the others, running them on a single plan is acceptable. For example, apps that are not mission critical and can tolerate minor performance variation may share a single plan. And multiple plan necessary if performance isolation is critical. If one app's heavy resource usage, for example, high traffic or intensive processing, could degrade another app's performance, using separate plan is a safer choice. Now, another question. So we understood the resource, peak usage, and the performance. If you remember this, we have all this written right here: performance, scaling, security. So all these pros and cons will help us find the right plan for us. Is it single or multiple? But how we will decide by asking these questions. So do the apps have same security needs, or do they handle sensitive data that requires isolation? So single plan acceptable for applications that have the same security needs and are not handling sensitive data. For example, internal tools or low security applications can share a plan without major risk. However, multiple plan essential if the apps have different security requirements. For instance, an application handling sensitive customer data such as finance or health should not share plan with less secure public app like a marketing blog, maybe due to potential security risk, right? And these things are always a trade-off. So we need security because we need to meet the compliance, so cost could be compromised. If it is if we need not to match any regulation or compliance, or it's not a production, then of course we'll try to save the cost. So trade-off is always there. We need to keep that in mind. Now, are you optimizing for cost efficiency, or are performance and isolation more critical? If for single plan, ideal when minimizing cost is a priority, as we said already, especially for development or testing environment, multiple apps can share a plan to avoid paying for separate resource for each app. Multiple plans are more expensive but necessary when performance, security, or scalability requirement demand separate plans. While it increases cost, it ensures that each application gets the resource and isolation it needs to fulfill their job, whether it's compliance, regulation, or user experience for the customer. So production will usually go with the single plan, not single plan with a single app. Okay, multiple plans, let's say that way. Now, are these production apps or non-critical development testing apps? So you can understand what where this leads. If for development testing or stay environment where cost saving is prioritized, go with a single plan for multiple apps. For production environment, it is always recommended to run multiple plans for the multiple applications. Do all apps need the same update schedule? Should they be deployed independently? Right. So again, it's pointing towards the same thing, the management one we talked about. Single plan, easier to manage, multiple plan required if you need to manage deployments independently. So single plan, easier to manage if all apps are updated or maintained together. For example, if you have multiple apps that will be updated or deployed together, a single plan simplifies coordination. Multiple plans required if you need to manage deployments independently. For instance, if one app requires frequent updates or maintenance while others need stability, it's better to separate them to avoid downtime for all applications. Now, the final question is, do the apps need to meet different regulatory requirement or compliance standards that we have mentioned while discussing the other questions? So you have the answer. If you have the compliance in place, of course, go with the multiple plans for multiple apps. If it's not, it's dev, then the single plan works for you. Let's quickly summarize the criteria. So single plan, where we need to choose single plan for multiple apps. Similar resource and scaling needs, lower security and compliance requirements, cost efficiencies prioritized over performance and isolation, non-production environments such as testing or development. If these are the production environment, then you need to check similar resource or scaling needs, lower security and compliance requirements. Usually it's non-production environment. For multiple, apps have different performance scaling or resource demands. Security, isolation, compliance are critical. Independent scaling or updates are required. Production environments demand high uptime and fault tolerance, hence separate plan for separate app services. So with this, I hope this particular piece is clear where you need a single app service plan for multiple applications or where you need multiple plans for multiple applications. Single app for single plan, we can put this way. I hope this video was informative and you enjoyed, some doubts cleared. Now you have the knowledge and confidence to go and talk to your customer and give them the right advice on the basis of the proper understanding, single plan versus multiple plans, pros, cons, criteria, security, and everything. Well, thank you.